Hello friends, my name is Jamie and you are watching This Solstistic. Today I'd like to talk to you about the stages of grief and chronic illness, and you're coming from up above. I changed my camera angle. We'll see how this goes. Adjust my bunny ears. All right. When I set out to do this channel, first I had the idea for this channel years ago, but I just never had the time, and then Corona happened and now I have the time, but it also has, coronavirus has changed the context of some of these videos. I really meant them to be for people with chronic illnesses and their parents, but I am going to talk a little bit about some of this in relation to what's happening in the world today, because I feel like it's an important thing that we talk about. And I'm going to try not to harp too long on that, so well, just bear with me as I try to figure out the juxtaposition of my new format here. So let's talk about the stages of grief with chronic illness. First of all, why am I talking about this? Well, people who are diagnosed with a chronic illness at some point in their lives, even if they're diagnosed at birth like I was diagnosed at 2 days old, or they're diagnosed way down the line in their lives, in their late teens and their 20s. It's uncommon to have CF diagnosed that long, but there are other chronic illnesses. Most of them are going to go through these stages of grief. We're grieving what our lives could have been. You're grieving the loss of an idea of the way your life could have turned out if things were different. And it's completely legitimate, and I see it today with coronavirus. This was nobody's idea of how their year was gonna go. Nobody's plan was what our reality is. And you can see grief and the stages of grief on a mass level across our world right now. So, and I think it's important that we kind of keep that in mind when we open up these conversations, because the way that we deal with someone who is grieving is going to be very different than the way that we deal with some people who we think have other motives. So let's jump right into this. First stage of grief is denial. For me, denial happened in my 20s. I think my 20s I hit denial hardcore. Denial for me looked like strict adherence to what I was supposed to be doing. I don't know, doing my meds, doing my therapies, exercising, all of this stuff. And then I would feel super good, and I would say, I'm not as sick as they say that I am. This is ridiculous. Why am I spending 2 hours or more every day of my whole life to do all of these treatments when I feel fine? I feel great. So I would stop doing all of the things that I needed to do to keep myself alive and healthy, and I would see a rapid decline in my health. And then I would start doing it again because I saw a rapid decline in my health, and I would be really good about it, and I would do it, and I would do it, and I would do it, and then I would feel so great that I would stop doing it. Because I felt great, I felt fine. This isn't really bad, right? So that is kind of what denial looks like, is this cycle, this cyclatory doing everything you're supposed to, and then you feel great, so you stop doing it, and then you feel really, really bad, and then you start doing it, and you feel really, really great. This is a big part of denial and chronic illness. So what do we do about it? When we see a friend who has a chronic illness, who is deep in the stages of denial, how do we help them? Well, for me, it was a matter of tracking it and starting to recognize the cycle. I have CF friends who are sick at the same time every single year. They get really adherent, then they stop. They get really, really sick, they go into the hospital gets them back to baseline, they're sent home, they do great, then they stop again. So one of the things you can do is point this out. And by point it out, I mean have them track it. When was the last time you took your breathing treatments? Oh, well, I feel great, I'm fine, that's not what this is. Okay, that's great, but when was the last time? And where are your symptoms heading? So now that I'm older and wiser, I know that if I stop doing my treatments, I know what that decline looks like. Increases in sneezing and coughing is first. Okay, so I feel a little bad, but it's not bad. And then a little worse, and then come the low-grade fevers, and by that time I'm screwed. So a lot of times it's about tracking it. Now, really quick, how this is going into the world at large. You see this a lot in the world at large, and I'm really surprised by the state of denial that a lot of our officials are in, which is coronavirus isn't that bad. It doesn't affect that many people. Like, not a lot of people die from it. No, not a lot of people die from it, but a whole lot of people get sick, and a whole lot of people end up in the hospitals, and our hospitals get overwhelmed. But it's not that bad, right? It's not that bad. The second stage, we're going into anger. I think anger is an important one to talk about because I see a lot of younger people with a lot of anger, and I'm talking teens, early 20s, and sometimes even kids. I saw a post one time that just about broke my heart, which was a cystic was saying, I know that I can live a long life with this illness. They have really changed the way that we treat cystic fibrosis, and they were saying they know that they could live a long time with it, but why would I want to? Why would I want to live a long time dealing with this? That is, a lot of people thought that was depression. And to me, that's anger. That is anger at the prospect that being the reality. That's your new reality. The reality is 2 to 3 hours a day, I have to do treatments and medicine to make sure that my body works properly. And, and to this day, sometimes I get a little angry about it, and that's okay. You just have to understand that that is what you're feeling. And it's important that we recognize anger and grief because a lot of people act out. A lot of people protest closings and they make a big stink because they're angry. They're not angry at a virus. I mean, that makes no sense. They're angry at what they've lost. It's grief, it's loss. We need to start recognizing these things. Let's move on. We're on to bargaining. Bargaining is an interesting one. I don't necessarily think that bargaining is always bad, as strange as that sounds, but bargaining is an interesting one because when I see bargaining in people with chronic illnesses, it looks like looking for the cure, looking for the thing that science hasn't done. So I see a lot of people with my disease, they get onto these fad fixes. I'm going to start taking alternative medications because that is going to help me. I'm going to start doing these other things because if I do these other things, then perhaps I can cure something that science hasn't yet been able to cure. I don't think it's, well, why I say I don't think it's necessarily bad is because I've studied a lot about the placebo effect. I know somebody who swears by Manuka honey. They say every time I start to get sick, I take a little bit of this Manuka honey and I feel totally better. And there are studies about the beneficial properties, and I am not one to stump my nose at things like the benefits of garlic and turmeric roots and all of these other good things that just promote good health, but you can go too far into it. And I think too far is where we stop taking the medications, the tried and true treatments that we know are going to keep us healthy in favor of these other things. But I don't think necessarily that adding some of these other things are going to be detrimental. So I think it's about finding a balance in bargaining. And as far as we are seeing in the world today, along with the coronavirus, our bargainers are the ones who say, well, maybe not everybody has to social distance. Maybe not everybody has to wear a mask. Maybe if we just get some people to do it, or the sick people to do it, or the sick people to stay home and do it. And there are tons of studies out there that are showing that you don't know when you're contagious. This disease is contagious something like 10 days before and just after contamination. So you're out there 10 days not knowing you're spreading this thing around. It's not good. So, but we see a lot of bargaining in that. All right, let's move on. Depression. The depression is real. I see a lot of people with depression. They hit depression. It happens. Be ready. I know, I'm sorry. I shouldn't be laughing, but it's a serious thing, because depression looks like what depression looks like. I mean, it's non-adherence to medication, and no seeing the point of it, actually stopping. And here's the difference between anger and denial and depression. In all three of these instances, there's a high probability that the person you love has stopped taking their medication. Now, in denial, it's because they feel great. They don't think they need it. In anger, they're angry about the fact that they have to do it, so they're not doing it. In depression, they're not doing it because they really want to harm themselves. Even if it's not suicide that they're going for, it is self-harm. And that's the one that I feel like we have to really be on the ball for. This is the one where you are going to need to find the person you love some help, a support group, something to hold on to. A lot of cystics, we talk about finding the joy in the little things, and that's because the depression can pull you under. Right now in the world, we're seeing a lot of it. We're seeing a lot of people in this depressive state. They're not being able to go out. They're not seeing their loved ones, and they are really depressed. And because of that depression, they are making some bad choices. They're making these choices not to mask and to see their loved ones, because to them, the juice is worth the squeeze. Your depression should not be something that you are putting other people's lives at risk for. And that's going to be a hard one to really come to grips with in the world today. But again, I can go on and on about this, but I really don't want to. So let's circle around to acceptance. So acceptance, we've accepted that we have this illness. We accepted that this is our new reality. And now we're going to do everything we can do to live with it. And that's a good place to be. Here's the thing about chronic illness, what I find with chronic illness and these stages of grief. They're not just a once and done sort of thing. You know, it's not just, okay, I did it. I did my grieving. I went through the cycle and I'm done. It's not a once or done. And it's not necessarily going to happen in order. You can jump around. You can be all over the place. These can come and they can go, and acceptance is going to crop up, and maybe you'll have acceptance for 5 years, and then you're going to hit bargaining again. Or maybe you're going to have acceptance for 2 months, and then you're going to hit anger again. So I talk about this because grief is the motivation behind it. Grief is the driving force. We are grieving. We're grieving what our lives could have been. We're grieving this social distancing thing. We're grieving the loss of businesses, the loss of contact with family. And the grief is real, and grief itself can cause physiological changes. I hear this all the time where people say, oh, well, I don't like to mask because the mask makes me feel sick. There are numerous studies all over the place. I don't need to go into it because they're easy to find, about how masking does not make anyone sick. I mean, if they did, Grey's Anatomy would have been all over that years ago. Let's just be honest. Oh, McHare, you can't go and do that surgery. You'll die from being in a mask. Oh, but I have to. I'm the only one who can. He needs this surgery. Yeah, we would have seen that already. So we know that the mask doesn't make you sick, but I believe people when they say that when they put that mask on, they are feeling sick, because that mask is representing everything that they have lost, everything that they are feeling. That mask represents not being able to touch their loved ones or go about their lives the way that they had imagined, and the grief is real. So I feel like some of what our job is as For all of you with chronic illnesses who have made it to your acceptance, we are out in the world, and some of what I feel like almost our job is nowadays is to be the compassionate voice, to find a compassionate voice in all of this, because it's like the entire world is being asked to accept a chronic condition all at once. And it's hard. We know it's hard. We have been dealing with this our whole lives. A lot of us, some of us for longer than others. But I feel like recognizing that a lot of this stems from places of grief is an important step to trying to help people move towards acceptance. Not just those of us who have chronic illnesses, but for those people out there right now who are experiencing something for the first time that they've probably never had to deal with in their lives, which is this idea that life is different, it has changed, and you have to find a way to live with it. It's not easy, but it is important, and there are things you can do to help yourself through it. I don't know if that's been helpful, but that is my message for this video. I hope you all stay happy, healthy, and safe. Have a good one.